Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right?
Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
and we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. We're back again with a pregame. If you were here last week, something was wrong because it was the bye week, which is otherwise known as the Andy Reid Gets Genius week. I'm here, Matt Connor, editor of Arrowhead Addict. I'm here with Adam Adam, your middle name should be by the way, Adam the Best. Adam
It's
Best
Christopher, actually, but okay.
It is Christopher. I prefer
It
not to be like, down on your parents there, but yeah, we're here with Adam Best as always with our pregame team. We got you covered pregame, mid-game at halftime, post-game with all the familiar faces and characters here at Arrowhead Addict. With a Super Bowl matchup, Adam, I just want to start here. How, before the season started, this was maybe the game circled on the calendar because it was going to be a midseason rematch of the Super Bowl. Now that we're into week 7, how does the level of this game feel to you compared to when it was announced back in May?
I think it's lost a little bit of steam because the 49ers are hovering right at 500, and the Chiefs, they're 5-0, which is very Chiefs-like, but the offense is kind of underwhelmed a little bit. So maybe some of the enthusiasm nationally for this game has been muted. It's still a big game. And I think part of that is both these teams are teams that care more about the postseason than the regular season. And regardless of what happens here today, I think there's a fairly good chance that both these teams represent their conference.
Yeah, I have to admit that even though the Niners are 3-3, they've had definitely their moments. Even the Chiefs have eked out close win after close win for close win. Neither team is probably playing the level of football that they want, and certainly with the injuries, we'll get into all that stuff. However, at the end of the season, I'm trusting Andy Reid. I'm trusting Kyle Shanahan. And that means I trust that this matchup is going to yield some good insider knowledge for down the stretch. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. So glad that you're here. As always, before we get into anything, though, just want to say, if you appreciate anything that we do here at Arrowhead Addict, it's a huge bonus to us for you to leave reviews on the podcast, 5 stars, of course, to check that you like this particular episode, that you subscribe to YouTube channel. Any of that stuff goes such a long way toward helping us bring you conquering algorithms globally. All right, let's get into things. In week 7. The Chiefs last week were off, and I want to start there because everyone else is coming in, and that's a big deal for the Chiefs. We know Andy Reid, I believe, is 21-4 coming off the bye. If that stat is inaccurate, I've at least made up something comparatively close, I'm sure.
I think it's correct.
To the real thing. Yeah, I felt good about it, whether or not I was wrong or right. I just felt good about it, so I'm with it. Andy Reid's 21-4 off the bye. That level of success is so overwhelmingly positive. It almost makes it seem like he's unbeatable coming out of the bye. Do you think even that sort of does that mystique enter the minds of the Niners? Does that make you kind of kick back and go, we got this? Like what do you do with that in and of itself?
Against most opponents, it's kind of like, well, it wasn't directly against this team. But with the 49ers, you think back to 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, both Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid had, Steve Spagnuolo for that matter, had 2 weeks to prepare, and the Chiefs coaching staff came out on top in both those matchups. I think especially outcoached the 49ers coaching staff late in the fourth quarter when coaching staffs have to be at their best, when you have to pull the aces out of your sleeves. So I think you have to give the advantage to Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo in the coaching department.
That's a big edge, like you said, in the coaching department. When it comes to the bye, though, using that creativity, I guess I'll throw this to you. I've got some of my own opinions here mixed in. I'm happy to talk about all these things. When you think about the ways specifically that the Chiefs will be able to get creative coming out of the bye, like what does that extra time allow them to do specifically that you're going to be watching for today? Is there anything that comes to mind?
There are two things, and the first is something they've done in the past couple of matchups against the 49ers, and that is using Nick Bosa's aggression and tendency to want to crash down the line of scrimmage and upfield against him with misdirection, with timing, with all kinds of Andy Reid shenanigans. I think he will try to neutralize Nick Bosa by kind of using how disruptive he is and how quick he is against him. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there have just been no explosive plays for this offense, and I don't think they're really coming in the running game. So look for Andy Reid to manufacture some trickeration or some play action to get the ball downfield into Xavier Worthy's hands. I think they have to really continue to open up this rushing attack. They have to be a little bit more threatening with the vertical
let's talk about this, because I'm in full agreement with you on this. My first thought when I thought about the bye week was insert Xavier Worthy into your fantasy lineups starting now if you weren't already. That with the loss of Rashee Rice, with the loss of Hollywood Brown, if opponents start zeroing in on Juju Smith-Schuster, there's really not much he's going to be able to do if he's ever doubled. He's never going to be like the sort of the world beater that those other first two guys were, although he filled in admirably last week or 2 weeks ago against the Saints. But what's really needed here is Xavier Worthy getting more than 12 catches in the first, what you'd say, half of the season, even though it wasn't a half. It felt like there were been moments when Worthy gets open on more routes than maybe what he's given credit for, and Mahomes has yet to really find him, and or the Chiefs have yet to really use him or trust him. And my thought was, well, if there's any way that the Chiefs could invest their time in a meaningful way in these 2 weeks, it is to sort of figure out how to unlock the next level of Xavier Worthy. You're agreeing with that?
I'm totally agreeing with that. And remember, only, I think you said 12 receptions, but pass interference calls, especially on those long pass interference calls, they are still very valuable, and he has been good at drawing those. I think he'll continue to be good at drawing those. I think they have to get him involved. And think back to Rashee Rice last year after the bye. He was much more fully integrated. His snap count steadily rose week after week after the bye. And he wasn't as much a part-time player. He was a full-time player, basically, when they had the 2 weeks to recalibrate. And I think the Chiefs really needed – normally you hate an early bye, but losing Rashee Rice when he was kind of the engine of this offense and Isaiah Pacheco, they really needed to desperately recalibrate and reset and say, okay, I guess now this offense has to run through Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt and Xavier Worthy. You're going to have to step up and do your best to pick up where Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco left up. And also Juju Smith-Schuster, I agree with you when it comes to man coverage. He's not going to be a world beater there. But when it comes to getting open against a lot of the zone looks, the Chiefs see a lot of those too high shell looks. He is really adept at finding the right place to sit down and being quarterback friendly for Patrick Mahomes. So as long as he's healthy, and it sounds like he's playing, I think he's a benefit.
You just mentioned it sounds like he's healthy injury wise. Let's flip our attention there real fast. The inactives lists are out. for the Chiefs and the Niners. Just want to go through these. For the Chiefs, they are down Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If there's any surprises here, it's that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not quite ready to play just yet, despite coming off of the NFI list really a little bit ago. And then Mike Dana is also out again this week. This is with the pectoral muscle injury. If you look at the injury report, he did not practice this week due to the pectoral muscle injury. But if you go back, Dana was healthy and active in week 5, but he wasn't in week 4. And that was due to a quad injury, if I remember right. And then before that, that was a calf injury. And then he was on the injury report for week 2, but still played with a quad injury. So this is the 3rd different injury for Mike Dana within the first half of a season. He's mostly played. This is now his 2nd missed game, but at a position that's already kind of thin, if you will, certainly, with guys who can set the edge well. What's your take on missing Dana for this matchup? And does that injury history this season kind of disturb you a bit for his availability for the long run?
It does disturb me, especially for this matchup. I don't like the idea of Felix Anudike-Uzomah going up against Trent Williams, one of the best left tackles in NFL history. That's an October horror movie, right? I'm kind of scared of that matchup.
Perfectly timed for Halloween.
It might explain Mike Dana's slow start. His pressure rate hasn't been good. His time to pressure hasn't been good. He's been okay against the run game, but he hasn't looked like himself. George Karlaftis hasn't been exactly setting the world on fire. He hasn't really taken that step forward. In fact, maybe he's taken a step backward. So as worried as everyone is about the wide receiver depth, and I'm definitely on board with that, I'm also worried about the edge depth, because I think Charles Omenihu is going to come back and look really good, but a lot of his disruption and the way he plays the game depends on that athleticism. We don't know that that's going to be totally back after that ACL injury less than a year ago. I propose today, maybe the Chiefs look at like a 12 Suggs kind of situation where they try to pick up an older edge. I don't know if Preston Smith is going to be available, but I think they could stand to add another edge. That depth.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm with you. Matt? I mean, this obviously most of our talking today is expected to be about Chiefs and Niners, but the trade deadline looms large in all of our heads for interest for the team. And most of the talk is about wide receiver, and rightfully so. But you just brought up for me one of 2 other spots, a defensive end. Remember, the Chiefs had interest in Manny Ogba before the season began. They made the trade for Cam Thomas, who he's now active today, but he went active and then inactive again in week 5. So, maybe Cam Thomas makes a jump forward. I wouldn't count on that. If you have Dana hurting, if you have Omenihu who's going to have to work his way back, if FAU is not making the leap in terms of like being more than a situational pass rusher, you have a need there. I think the other need for me is maybe grabbing a guy like Walker Little or something from the Jags, who he's played some guard, he's played some tackle, someone else. The drop off. Remember, we've lost Wiley and we've lost Nick Allegretti in subsequent years, and both of those guys played considerable and important reps in the postseason in these Super Bowl runs. Right now, what you have is like Mike Caliendo and then a bunch of rookies, Hunter Norzad, CJ Hansen, etc. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the Chiefs getting a little bit more security, versatility up front on offense, chasing, maybe a spot starter kind of veteran on defense, and then maybe some wide receiver. I think any of those are possible pre-deadline deals. Your thoughts?
Those are the 3 weak spots. I'm really worried about left tackle play, and I think it is affecting Patrick Mahomes' performance so far. He clearly doesn't trust those young bucks out on the left tackle. And then Jawan Taylor, he has just not been as good as advertised. He has not been worth the money to date. The penalties are super disruptive, and he is a flag magnet. I joke that he has more flags than the United Nations. It's just very frustrating. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating that he's had a season and a half to kind of recalibrate. And is it fair that he became kind of a marked man because the Chiefs are on TV so much? Maybe not, but dude, you have to get it together. And I'm not worried about Patrick Mahomes. I am a little worried about Patrick Mahomes' ceiling, though, when he doesn't trust his tackles and he doesn't have a good enough group of skill players around him. So I would like either a tackle or a wide receiver or some combination of both would go a long way to, I think,
I think
easing
you're
his
totally
mind
right
back
there. I think you're totally right. Back to inactives for the Chiefs, by the way, we're talking Cam Thomas is active today. Also, the question coming in, whether Juju Smith-Schuster was going to play. He is active. He is going to play. I saw some comments, questions in the chat. Just want to clarify there that he is in and apparently good. For the 49ers, let me go through this list of inactive players. Tell me what you think of this, Adam, if anything stands out to you. Jawan Jennings is out, wide receiver. He was out already coming into the weekend. Kicker Jake Moody. Also, kicker Matthew Wright, his replacement was placed on IR. They're rolling with a third kicker today off the practice squad, Anders Carlson. Josh Dobbs, quarterback. Jalen Graham, linebacker. Ben Barch, offensive lineman. Braden Willis, tight end. And Daryl Luter Jr., cornerback for the Niners. Those are your inactives there. Any thoughts on that?
Not really. I guess Ricky Pearsall is probably going to step in for Jawan Jennings, the rookie out of Florida. And he's a first-round pick, so there shouldn't be too much of a drop-off there. I guess Jordan Mason is playing and doesn't have an injury designation, and Isaac Garendo is going to back him up. You love that. I mean, not for Christian McCaffrey, but you love that Christian McCaffrey is not playing, because where is this Kansas City Chiefs pass defense and really this defense as a whole weak? They're not weak against the run. They're not weak against explosive plays and on the perimeter. Where they are a little soft is the passing game in the short to intermediate center of the field. And I think that's where we have to watch George Kittle, but also Christian McCaffrey could have ate in that kind of role. But the Chiefs have one less worry today, and I think that's possibly what will help decide.
Just a note, Jawan Jennings is out. He's led the Niners in 3 of their 6 games this year in receiving yards. You wouldn't think that with a team with so many other playmakers, but that's been the case so far this season.
Well, it's worth mentioning that Trent Williams, on one hand, missed a lot of training camp and the preseason, and he's a vet. He plays tackle. I don't think that made too much of a difference. But for Brandon Ayuk, he has not looked like himself. He has not been very good this season. Last season, he looked like one of the best receivers in the entire league, both when it comes to the eye test and the advanced metrics like yards per route run. I think he was behind only Tyreek and maybe Nico Collins. So he's an elite talent who hasn't been performing like it. And I actually like the way the Chiefs receivers match up with Debo and Brandon Ayuk. We saw that in the Super Bowl. They played very well against those two guys. Some of that is coaching. So you kind of like not having Jawan Jennings out there as one of Brock Purdy's security.
Let's talk about the state of the Niners real fast, because like you mentioned, this matchup doesn't loom as large as it once did. They're 3-3. The 3 wins have come against the Jets in week 1, the Patriots in week 4, and Seattle, although they had a big lead and then they kind of crumbled and then they went on to win the game. That was last week in week 6. And then they lost a real close game, 1-pointer to the Arizona Cardinals in week 5. They lost a 3-pointer to the Rams and then lost by 6 at Minnesota. Justin Jefferson had a nice game there, beat them deep. You're just curious, like how the losses have been close. The wins, though, have not been anything to write home about. What do you make of those results, and like what kind of a team is this? What's the ceiling here? I mean, I guess you said earlier that they could be there in the end, but
I don't think any of those losses are alarming when you look at them. I still expect this team to be in the fight, to be in the mix at the end of the NFC playoffs. What's really interesting to me about this matchup is back in 2019, actually 2020, when they met in the Super Bowl, you had the Chiefs as the Legion of Zoom, this very vertical, explosive passing attack. And then on defense, they struggled to cover the run. And the 49ers were kind of more of a smash mouth football team, and they were really good up front. And the two teams have kind of like switched. Now the 49ers are this vertical, explosive passing attack. Brock Purdy leads the NFL in air yards per attempt, and they're kind of softer against the run on defense than you'd expect. Meanwhile, the Chiefs are the most dink and dunk offense in the league, very successfully, I might add. But they're also extremely good against the run. Whether you're Derrick Henry or Bijan Robinson, you haven't been able to run on the Kansas City Chiefs so far this season. So it's a little bit of a swap. I'm not used to these two teams being in these different
that
roles.
is interesting. It's been a real testament to this coaching staff, the way the Chiefs have been able to play chameleon on offense and still maintain the same sustained success that they have. So huge kudos there to Andy Reid. And I think that comes with coaching continuity, don't you? I think it comes with the fact that they haven't lost guys on the sidelines. No coaching staff. I would just say this. I don't think there could be an argument against it. What coaching staff knows their players better than the Chiefs coaching staff knowing their guys? I just think I can't imagine another team knows their guys and the way they use them.
And I think one of the many benefits of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes is they get so much of the credit. And I think also having Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, a couple of surefire future Hall of Famers, doesn't hurt either. But these assistant coaches, Cullen, Merritt, Nagy, the list goes on and on. They don't get the credit that they would in other cities. So they're not getting plucked away. I mean, Spags not getting plucked away is a war crime for the rest of the league. I mean, just so stupid. One of these teams should have jumped on the grenade for the other 30 just to get him out of Kansas City, right? Like allowing Spags to stay in Kansas City with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes is just nuts. But I think the downside there is potential complacency, not getting creative enough. You don't have to worry about Spags and Andy Reid not getting creative enough, right?
Yeah, it's they're just incredible, and I love where this is at. By the way, just want to get some breaking news in here. Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions have pulled off, I guess you'd call it a minor upset considering where they're at in the standings. The Minnesota Vikings have officially fallen from the ranks of the unbeaten. The NFL has one unbeaten team left. They're minutes away from taking the field against their competitor, the opponent in last year's Super Bowl. The Chiefs being the last unbeaten. Adam, do you think that's going to remain the case here after today?
I don't bet against the Chiefs, man. At this point, how can you? They just know how to eke out these ugly wins. Now, I'm not picking them to score more than 20 points just because I've been burned too many times, but I think they're going to pull it out. They're the better team. I think they're the better coach team. I'm a fan of what the 49ers do, but they're just a little out of their league when it comes to facing the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, I want to get to just a few more things here. First of all, John Satterfield, one of our commenters, gifted a few subscriptions to a handful of folks here in the comments. Just want to give a shout out to John. Thanks so much for the gifts and the membership there. If you want to know more, by the way, about membership in Arrowhead Addicts community, we have a private Discord, other bonuses to you there as well. You can find all the information at arrowheadaddict.com/membership. membership, if I'm right, and my producer Richard will tell me if I'm wrong on that. Hey, by the way, the Niners are injured. I want to talk about the ground game here. We got a few minutes left, Adam, and I want to get your thoughts. Kareem Hunt has been a battering ram, a man revitalized coming in off the couch back to the Chiefs. Then, of course, you have Carson Steele in there, Samaje Perine. It doesn't look like Clyde is going to play today, but the Niners, Javon Hargrave's out. They're missing some key players in the secondary who are strong against the run. Hufanga, safety. Just kind of curious, like, do you expect this ground game to keep rolling after the bye, and will they lean on it as much?
Oh yeah. I'm a big believer in Andy Heck and the way he coaches that offensive line, and I'm an equally big believer in Creed Humphrey, who I think is the best center in the NFL, Joe Tooney, who's an all-pro in his own right, and then Trey Smith, who is one of the more underrated guards in the league. And they can really move people, that trio. And we haven't seen, I don't think, any defensive fronts really keep them from doing that. So I expect them to continue to control the line of scrimmage, to power this running game. Kareem Hunt, I don't know if he went over to Germany with Christian McCaffrey for stem cells or what. I don't know what he did, but he looks like a new human being. He has looked kind of slow and beat up his past few years in Cleveland. Now, keep in mind, not only has he been watching the Kansas City Chiefs stack up Lombardis and from the sideline. I'm thinking of that like SpongeBob meme of where they're, someone's sadly watching the two like running down the street or whatever. But in Cleveland, he was playing with Deshaun Watson and seeing stacked boxes because no one at this point is worried about Deshaun Watson. But you're never going to see stacked boxes. Even when Patrick Mahomes is somewhat slumping for his standards, they're just not going to stack the box against him. They're going to say, Kareem Hunt, you beat us. Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, you guys beat us. We're not going to let Patrick Mahomes throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns against us. And it's looked really good. And he seems maybe not all the way back, but 80% of the way back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to have a good game. I don't know. It's hard to say, honestly. Let me ask you this. Who has a better game today? Travis Kelce, George Kittle?
Oh, man, that is a tough question because I think both these teams are really going to need them. Right now, with the Chiefs' injury situation, no Rashid, no Hollywood, no Pacheco, I think they need Kelce a little bit more. Also, Kelce runs more routes. The 49ers are going to keep George Kittle in a little bit more to block. So I'm going to go with Kelce by a slim margin, but I expect against our safeties and linebackers, I expect George Kittle to have
I'm kind of
a good
watching
game.
for that myself. Any player that we've not discussed that we should be looking for? Any surprise sort of predictions or call-outs?
Usually I go with the surprise. Today I'm not going with the surprise. I'm going with Chris Jones. I think to date he is the defensive player of the year. He is third in pass rush win rate at 21.7, which is just crazy for the most double-team player in the league. He only trails Aiden Hutchinson, who's now hurt, and Myles Garrett, and he gets double-teamed twice as much as those guys. So he's playing, honest to God, at a peak Aaron Donald level right now. He is playing as good as a defensive tackle can possibly play. And if the Chiefs get in trouble late, I expect him and Spags to come up clutch again. Like they have so many
at this
times.
point, it's hard to say they won't until proven otherwise. The Chiefs have earned that level, that benefit of the doubt. I will say this. I predicted the Niners to win today, only because I know. I predicted this, and I even said this only because I didn't think the Chiefs would be undefeated to this point. That I thought, hey, even if they win 13, they still have to lose 4. They got to lose to someone, and a regular season loss to the Niners is is about as probable as any other. That said, the more we talk about it here, the more I'm thinking, yeah, that's not happening. So I don't know. I don't know what to think, honestly, but we'll see what's up. By the way, late word, Deebo Samuel is ill. He is sick. He's expected to play, but you know how maybe Clyde gave him a little bit case of the bubble guts, something like that. I don't know. But that's word. It'll be something to watch during the game. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, no matter what we predict, we're all rooting for the Chiefs. And, of course, we're there. Adam, any final words before we let viewers get ready to watch the game and get their chips and salsa and all that stuff?
No, I have the Chiefs 20-17, again, finding a way to win an ugly game late. I mean, maybe they will surprise us and come out of the bye on fire. I think the last time they were in San Francisco, they looked incredible. Keep an eye on Jalen Watson. That's the difference between the Deebo and Ayuk matchup from last year. L'Jarius Sneed was kind of taking on those guys. So Jalen Watson's going to be really important.
I'll just throw out a random, this will be a very, very minor subplot. But I was convinced that the Chiefs were really enamored with Jaden Hicks and his skill set. And I wondered if at the bye, Steve Spagnuolo would begin to figure out ways to get him more involved. So I want to watch his snap counts. I'm anxious to see if he starts chipping away at some of the reps that other guys are getting. This would be a good time to get it. So, yeah. Hey, folks, with that, my name is Matt Connor. We're here with Adam Best. We will be back at halftime for all the normal coverage, looking at the first half. And then after the game, our friends Patrick Allen and company will be here to join us in the post-game festivities. Hopefully, those are victorious post-game festivities and a full game breakdown. But until then, as always, we appreciate any way that you ever read, listen, hang out, watch, anything that we do. Chiefs Kingdom is blessed with a ton of places to go for quality analysis and places to hang out with other fans. And so we're just so thankful for you all here. But until then, let's get to the field for the game. And we'll, go Chiefs.